Hi, this is Samantha Segan with Ambitious Media, bringing you stories of success and inspiration. I'm here today with Keith Bunin, who's a playwright who's had 3 plays put on by Playwright Horizons here in New York City, and has written for television, including HBO's show Intriguement. Keith, how did you get started in your career?
I was always writing from when I was very little. I would dictate stories to my mother before I could read, and she would write them down in little handmade books. And so I was always sort of thinking in terms of writing, and most of my writing always came out in dialogue. And it wasn't until I went to college, I went to the film school at NYU at Tisch, and then I was in the film production department. And then, when I was there, I realized that what I was most interested in was solving writing problems. Instead of working on that, and I was less interested in solving the problems of being a director or solving the problems of producing. So that was sort of my realization when I was about 18 or 19, that I really just wanted to write. And at the same time, I was working with a theater company with some friends I'd formed in New York, and just started writing and directing and sort of self-generating my own stuff. So that was sort of the beginning of it, and that slowly but surely led to working more professionally.
And how do you just motivate yourself to, just write, or what networks of support do you use to keep yourself going?
That's a really great question. I think that I tend to find that the first year that I earned a living as a writer was very, very hard, because it was really hard to self-generate, and the whole day stretching out in front of me seemed a little scary sometimes. It was much easier in a funny way when I had to do it late at night, and I'd sort of just work on my own clock after my job or after classes. But what I sort of found was that I was actually very good at doing, my subconscious mind was very good at the beginning of the day. So what I would often do is just sort of start working as the beginning of the day, and then use the second half of the day, once my subconscious mind was sort of exhausted, to sort of plan and structure out things that I found that I could do all day long. And now what I tend to do is, the night before I go to bed, I tend to make a plan for when I'm going to get up and just immediately start writing the next morning, which actually sort of helps me get up and wake up into just doing work. But I think, in terms of ideas, it usually takes me a while for like a bunch of ideas to bang together in my head, and then figure out, oh, this is actually a story idea. This is actually something that actually could sustain itself for a play or a film script. The kind of writing I do, which is dramatic writing, whether it's for film or TV or theater, I feel like there's sort of the feelings I have and the emotions I have, which are sort of why I want to write something, which I kind of think of as the liquid. And then there's the sort of structure of the piece, which I kind of think of as the bottle, like what's the story. And it's sort of this great thing that at a certain point, when you're sort of walking around thinking of your feelings and also thinking of ideas for stories, when you discover, oh, this liquid can fit in this bottle. And that's when I really want to start writing. That's when I get really excited to start writing.
So what about people who've inspired you or motivated you or helped you?
I think there's been so many. When I was growing up in Poughkeepsie, there was this amazing, there were all these women who were the wives of IBMers, who were actually very creative, but who at that point in time, had become housewives in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up. And they had started this community theater, children's theater, which was very process-based and not sort of what we think of as children's theater, but really something that was all about theater games and sort of learning how to just unlock your creativity in that. And there was a woman named Jan Dennison and a woman named Julie Leach, who had both started that company, that were very inspirational to me. And then I took a summer film course at Vassar with a man named Jim Stearman, who's still just retired there as a professor, who sort of taught me about film for the first time. And then when I got to New York, it was a mix of sort of people who, there were 2 playwrights, a number of playwrights, 2 in particular, one named Peter Parnell and one named Wendy Kesselman, who were already quite successful, who, when I just sort of sent them stuff blindly, were incredibly supportive and were incredibly helpful to me in just sort of, developing myself as a playwright and writer, and also making me feel like a playwright and writer. So, and then also I want to sort of say that another half of it is just finding peers. I think a lot of sort of my development came from finding the people my own age who I most want to work with, people that I went through college with, who I really connected with. So I think it was a combination of sort of mentors and also of people who were in the same place I was, trying to get work done.
Do you have any quick advice for anybody who's starting a career, or anybody who wants to figure out what they're passionate about?
I think it has to do with, I think what I would say is, when I went to film school and I was in film production, I was hitting a bunch of walls, and they made me not want to continue. But when I was writing and I had similar kinds of walls, it still made me want to continue working on it. And I think that's the biggest advice I would give people starting out, is that you're going to hit walls. You're not going to get immediate approval. And that's actually kind of a great thing because it makes you discover whether or not you really want to do it. Because if you want to do something just entirely based on how it's going to be received or how quickly you'll get approval, then you probably don't really want to do it. And for me, that's how I felt. Like as soon as I went, like, oh, this is going to be difficult, and this is going to be a lifetime of problem solving, but fun. The problem solving itself becomes fun. Solving a writing problem is super fun for me. So if that's fun for you, every day to sit down and work on that and sort of try to solve those problems, then you're probably doing the right thing.